Harper Lee's, well, masterpiece, To Kill a Mockingbird. It gets called a timeless classic all the time, right? But what actually gives it such staying power, decades after it first came out? So our mission here isn't just to rehash the plot. We want to dig into the core elements, its structure, that really specific 1930s Maycomb setting, and crucially, the central metaphor behind the title. We hope you walk away really understanding why this book still sparks so much conversation.
Right, and to start, you really have to place yourself back in the 1930s American South. We're talking about this fictional town, Maycomb, Alabama. Even though the book came out in 1960, it throws the reader right back into a time defined by extreme hardship, the Great Depression, which has made all the underlying racial tensions and social structures even worse.
Okay, let's unpack that straight away. It deals with some incredibly heavy stuff, racism, poverty, injustice, but the whole story is told by a 6-year-old girl, Scout Finch. How does Lee pull that off? How do you convey that kind of darkness through such an, well, innocent perspective?
Well, that choice of narrator is, I think, arguably the book's biggest masterstroke.
Yeah.
Everything filters through Scout's young eyes. Her narration style is simple, very direct.
Almost childlike, obviously.
Exactly. She reports what happens, what people say, often very accurately, but she doesn't always get the full adult meaning behind it all. Not right away, anyway. Sort of a delayed understanding for her.
Ah, okay. And that's fascinating for anyone trying to analyze how the book works structurally. Because Scout doesn't fully grasp the prejudice. She doesn't really editorialize much, does she? She's like this clean channel, letting the reader see the injustice almost firsthand without a lot of commentary layered on top.
Precisely. That filtering mechanism is key. It means the novel doesn't feel like it's preaching at you. So when her father, Atticus Finch, decides to defend Tom Robinson, a black man who's been falsely accused, tragically Scout just sees her dad doing his job, what he believes is right.
But we, as readers, especially adult readers, we see it instantly, don't we? We understand Atticus is basically taking on the entire prejudiced social order of Maycomb. It's a huge moral stand.
Yeah, absolutely. He's setting himself up for a massive uphill battle, one he knows he likely can't win in court.
So for you, listening and thinking about this book, that narrative setup is just crucial. It transforms what could be a dry history lesson about injustice into something much more universal. A story about innocence encountering the often harsh realities of the adult world. Which brings us right to the core themes. We know it's about justice, prejudice, but let's talk about that central symbol, the one in the title. What does it actually mean to kill a mockingbird?
Yeah, this is really the essential piece of the puzzle. The mockingbird metaphor stands for pure, vulnerable innocence, something harmless that only brings good into the world. Atticus explains it to his kids, Jim and Scout.
Right, he says something like, shoot all the blue jays you want, but remember it's a sin to kill a mockingbird.
Exactly, and the reason is simple. Mockingbirds don't do anything destructive, they don't eat up people's gardens or cause trouble, they just, well, make music for everyone to enjoy. They're harmless and they give pleasure.
So destroying one it's senseless cruelty.
Precisely. And the novel clearly points to two main characters as mockingbirds. The most obvious is Tom Robinson. His only fault, if you can even call it that, was being kind. His innocence is completely destroyed by Maycomb's ingrained racism and lies. His trial and conviction, that's the sort of public, visible tragedy.
And the second one, this one's maybe a bit more complex. Arthur Boo Radley, the mysterious neighbor everyone's scared of.
Yes, absolutely, Boo Radley. He's the town recluse, this figure of childhood's legend and fear for Scout and Jem. But he's fundamentally misunderstood, damaged by years of isolation and, frankly, cruel town gossip. He's another kind of innocent.
He's sort of the hidden tragedy, then.
Yeah. You could say that. He ultimately acts heroically, saving the children near the end, showing this innate goodness, but he remains terrified of the outside world, still trapped. He's another mockingbird figure, almost destroyed by the town's unkindness and failure to understand.
Okay, let's pivot slightly to Atticus Finch. Yeah. He really holds the moral center of the novel, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
People often see him as this icon of moral heroism. But is there any critique of that? Is he maybe too idealized, almost too good to be true?
That's a really important question, and one that literary scholars have definitely explored, particularly more recently. Atticus is, without doubt, the moral guidepost in the story. His main function, arguably, is to teach ethics primarily to Scout and Jem, but through them, to us, the readers. His famous advice about empathy. That you can't understand someone until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. That's really the core lesson the novel pushes through him. He's the voice of reason and empathy against the mob mentality of the community.
So if we connect that to the bigger picture, the sources seem to suggest the book's power isn't just in showing a good man, but in using Atticus to show the difference between just following the law and actual deeper morality. I mean, he loses the case for Tom Robinson.
Legally, yes, he fails.
But maybe he wins something more important, like preserving his own integrity and teaching his children what really matters.
I think that's a key interpretation. He fails within the flawed legal system, but he succeeds in demonstrating moral courage and shaping his children's understanding of justice and humanity.
Let's talk more about the setting. You mentioned the 1930s. The sources really stress how vital this backdrop is. It wasn't just about race. It was also about crushing poverty during the Great Depression. How did that economic despair kind of feed into the prejudice Lee portrays?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. The Depression provides the social pressure cooker, you could say. In a small, struggling town like Macomb, your social standing was everything, and it was constantly under scrutiny. Poverty was widespread.
Well, people clung to whatever status they had.
Exactly. For many of the poorer white families, like the Yules who accused Tom Robinson, the one thing they felt gave them status was their perceived racial superiority over the black community. That tiny bit of social standing, however marginal, became something to guard fiercely, even violently.
Ah, okay.
So this economic desperation helps explain, though it certainly doesn't excuse, the jury's verdict. Protecting that fragile social hierarchy, upholding white supremacy, became more important than actual justice for an innocent black man, because convicting Tom validated the status of his white accusers.
Wow. That makes the failure of the justice system feel even deeper. It wasn't just prejudice in a vacuum. It was prejudice amplified by economic fear and desperation.
Precisely. The two were tragically intertwined in that time and place.
Okay, let's shift gears to the book's impact now. It's not just a popular novel, it's standard reading in schools all over the world. But what's interesting is its place on the curriculum sometimes causes debate, even controversy. Why would a book that seems to champion justice and empathy face challenges?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? The controversy cuts both ways. On the one hand, it's praised, rightly so, for its powerful lessons about tolerance, about having the courage to do what's right, and about the dangers of prejudice. The sources absolutely confirm its power to make readers think deeply about humanity.
Okay.
But on the other hand, some modern critics, and some educators too, question its perspective. Specifically, they point to what's sometimes called the white savior narrative. Meaning that the story of racial injustice is told primarily through the experiences and actions of a white protagonist, Atticus. He's the hero who fights the good fight. And this raises a valid question. Does focusing so much on Atticus's moral journey inadvertently sideline or simplify the experiences and perspectives of the black characters, like Tom Robinson or Calpurnia? Does it center whiteness too much in a story about anti-black racism?
Right. And that very tension, that debate, is probably part of why the book remains so relevant today. It forces us to think not just about the historical injustices it depicts, but also about how we tell these stories. Who gets to be the hero? Whose perspective is centered?
Exactly. It prompts ongoing discussions about representation in literature and how we grapple with difficult histories.
So bringing this all together, what the sources really underline is that Mockingbird's enduring power comes from this incredible blend of literary technique and moral weight. Lee uses Scout's innocent eyes, this powerful mockingbird metaphor,
to show how vulnerable innocence is, whether it's Tom Robinson facing a rigged court or Boo Radley facing a judgmental society.
Yeah, vulnerable to ingrained prejudice, to institutional failures, and just plain small-town meanness. It really boils down to being a foundational text on empathy, doesn't it?
I think so. It asks us to step into other people's shoes, even when it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take away. Atticus Finch showed incredible moral courage. He acted knowing he'd likely fail in court. He faced down that lynch mob. He endured being ostracized by his community.
If the personal cost was high?
So if the core message of Mockingbird is about valuing moral courage over social acceptance or comfort, what's an issue today that demands that kind of Atticus-like stand, where the personal cost might be significant, but the moral need to act feels just as inescapable? Something to think about.